What is going on, everyone? FNCS Grand Finals is in about 2 weeks, so let's talk about who made it through all 3 rounds of the heats for NaE, so we know kind of who we're going to see in the Grand Finals on August 13th. Let's get into it. So normally I'd be recapping NA East and NA West, but since the NA West broadcast got canceled, I'm only able to go over NA East today. For Heat 1, Heat 1's not really all that surprising because most of the people that we kind of predicted to go through did make it through. The 5 people who made it through for Victory Royales, and if you didn't know how the semis work, if you win one of the games, you automatically get pushed through to the Grand Finals, and then the top 5 or top 6 most consistent teams for the first round also make it through. Moving forward to Heat 2 and 3, it'll be 6 people who won one of the 12 games that were played, and then 6 of the most consistent for Heat 2 and Heat 3. So in Heat 1, first off, we've got Cooper and NaE, which no surprise there. They're amazing players, always have been. On the second game, we've got Nut and Chucky, which once again, not really surprising because they are our high ground team for NA East. And the third one, Spade and Chimp. Not a lot of people know about, Spade and Chimp for real, even though they probably should if they watch a lot of competitive because they were last year's FNCS runner-up. I kind of predicted them to make it through without even having to go to heats, honestly. But here they are, and they qualified on the third game of round 1. Next up, Skittles and Users. Once again, it's not really an FNCS Grand Finals without Skittles and Users. We've seen them in pretty much every FNCS here lately. The last one to make it for a win was Nevify and Crisp, which honestly, I haven't heard much of Crisp, but Nevify I have. I've seen him in quite a few Grand Finals, so once again, no real surprise there. But then we move on to our top 6 most consistent. And the top consistent that we've seen was Paper and Lawrence. They ended with about 160 points with an average elims of 4.8 and average placement of 8.6. It was pretty crazy, honestly. Their match history shows a 5th place, a 10th place, a 2nd place, a 23rd place, and a 3rd place. All but one game did they, have a top 10 performance, which is just insane in these types of lobbies, right? After that, we've got Threats and Macwood, Rocane and Dubs, Teo and Pump, Muzz and Playify, Nix and Nick, along with Smite and Larson as well. Now, Nix and Nick, I haven't seen too much of them, so I might have to keep my eye on them going into the Grand Finals just to see kind of how they do. I haven't really seen much of them, so I'm kind of interested to see how they do. Obviously, Threats and Macwood, we kind of knew that they were going to play together. One that really had me surprised, though, was Dubs and Rocane. Now, for the longest time, Dubs always played with Mega, but I think Mega retired this season. I'm not 100% on that, so let me know down in the comment section below if that's correct. And I always kind of rooted for Dubs and Mega, so it's good to see that Dubs, if Mega did retire, is still playing, competitive and is doing actually pretty well here in the heats, making it through with 130 points with a average placement of 9.8, which isn't bad. It looks like they almost had about the same consistency as Paper, with what Paper's 10th place was is Dub's 12th place. So still overall pretty good, not gonna lie. Obviously we have Muzz and Playify as well. I've really been rooting for Muzz ever since he came in from OCE, and Playify, we all know Playify is a beast, so no surprise that they made it through as well. And like I said, Heat 1, really no surprise on who actually made it through. We kind of expected most of them to make it through, but when it goes to Heat 2 and Heat 3, that's where stuff kind of gets, a little scary for a couple of teams now. So for Heat 2, our first winner was actually Aaron and Naves. Not quite sure on how you pronounce his name, but they are heading into Grand Finals which will actually make their first ever earnings as well. So very underrated duo there. Definitely want to keep an eye on them as well during the grand finals to see how they do, because like I think they have like $450 earned or something like that going into grand finals. If they come in last place, they've literally like doubled the earnings that they've made from, you know, competitive Fortnite. That's actually pretty cool to see someone new in the roster of grand finals. Next, we have Blate and Vert. It's pretty interesting because like their match history, if you look at it, they're the ones who actually came second to Aaron and Neves in the first game. So them being able to qualify on the second game, their match history just shows second place and first place, which is just outstanding if you ask me, especially against the caliber of players that they're going against in these heats. That's just amazing work from Blake and Vert there. The winner of round 3 was Dom and Tragics. No real surprise there. You know, Tragics is the 2-time runner-up for FNCS. Obviously, no doubt that he was going to make it through. But the thing is, like, him playing with Dom, that wasn't too bad, honestly. Pretty interesting to see that. Dom's a pretty good player. Don't really know much from him, but from what I watched in this heat, Dom and Tragics, man, they work pretty well together. Games 4, 5, and 6 were won by 20 Rhythm, Chubbs and Jackson, Qua and Tab G. Once again, no real surprise from there, but the biggest like surprise during this heat, especially for someone winning a game, was like I mentioned, Aaron and Naves, and I can't wait to see how they do in grand finals. As far as consistency goes, the people who moved on was Kaz and Hoofishy, AV and Golden, Ritual and TK, Cease and Day, Shoni and OMG Me Too, Costa and Zeus, with Okus and Simple, Dejan and Pledge just barely missing out. But let me go over the ones that did make it through with consistency, because I do want to talk about Okus and Dejan before we move on to Heat 3. So, Kaz and Hoofishy, amazing duo. I could go on all day about it. Kaz made every finals except for one, and here he is again in Chapter 3, Season 3 Grand Finals. Amazing duo here. They had an average placement of 9.5. So all but one game where it looks like they, I'm not going to say died off spawn, but they died pretty early in the game. But besides that one game, they made, you know, top 10 every single match with a 4th place, 3rd place, 9th place, and 3rd place. Most of their games were top 5s, except for the one 9th place and then the one 34th place that they did. So excellent out of them. They ended with 182 points, which is just amazing. AV and Golden, a recent duo that just formed, kinda. AV, you know, he's a goat. What can we say? He's a goat. I just actually started following him, being a controller player myself. He's very knowledgeable on controller. And if you don't know, you know, you should go check him out. You might be able to learn a lot if you are a controller player as well. So shout out to AV. But I do want to talk about how they've been doing in the rounds, you know, as they've gone on, right? So they've done pretty good in the first couple of rounds, but when it comes to these set lobbies, they seem to be like struggling a little bit, but that's because they've been dropping at a edge of the map location, which with these new storm surge changes have really kind of made it hard for them, you know, trying to rotate with how the zones have been pulling, get their surge tags as well. So they really earned this this consistency place moving forward into grand finals. Like, they really had to work for it. Hopefully they can get their search tags and whatnot figured out going into grand finals. I know I was in AV's stream the other day listening. They said that, you know, they kind of have a plan, but it's hard to plan for it in grand finals because a lot of other people are going to plan something different as well, and that might throw off their entire strategy for getting storm surge tags. So hoping for the best for AV and Golden. I'll be definitely rooting for them come grand finals. Ritual and TK, also a newly formed duo. Ritual and TK. Now, if you didn't know, Ritual actually won the DreamHack Dallas tournament, and after that, he ended up picking up TK. And this is amazing for Ritual. He was, kind of an underdog. No one ever heard of him. And then he won DreamHack Dallas, which kind of boosted him up the leaderboards a little bit as far as like popularity. And he was able to pick up TK, and now they're just absolutely killing it in competitive. Next, we have Cease and Day, which, I mean, come on now. They were going to make it through. They're amazing duos. Cease is an amazing IGL, with Day being an amazing fragger. And from the games, it looks like Cease has actually been able to put Day on somewhat of a leash and keep him from just completely jumping into people's boxes when it's not necessary. So good on Cease. Also good on Day for growing as a player. I can see them doing really well in the grand finals. But the most underrated duo of this heat is probably Costa and Zeus. Now, there really isn't much to say about these guys because not a lot of people know about them. You don't really hear much about these guys. And honestly, like, I would not have predicted these guys to go through because, like, they're really no names until now. This is going to be another team that I have my eyes on during the grand finals just to see how they do. Because them being the underrated, team for this heat anyway, y'all know I love the underdogs. Y'all know I want to see the underdogs do well. So definitely going to be rooting for them as well. And I hope they do well in the finals. Now let's talk about Dejan and Pledge. Now, they missed out qualifying to the finals by 2 points. Or 2 elims, I should say. But if you look at their match history, they came 3rd, 2nd, 47th, 46th, 41st, and 2nd. Now, obviously, they were contested on their drop spot, but you can see that if they made it off spawn, they came 3rd, 2nd, and 2nd. So not only did they miss qual by 2 elimination points, but they had 2 games where, like, literally they were 1 kill away from automatically qualifying onto the finals. But that's okay. That is okay. Maybe they'll do better in Heat 3. Who knows? Also, Ocus and Simple, they missed out on any of the round 4s during FNCS, but they ended up making heats off of just consistency with their round 3s, which is almost unheard of, honestly. Like, normally you have to make round 4 to get enough series points to be able to make it into any of the heats. And here they are in round 2 off of consistency, but they missed out as well with like 3 points. Unfortunate for them, especially because Ocus couldn't play round 3 because he had to pack to go to the Saudi Arabia tournament that they were hosting out there for like $2 million. So it's kind of understandable why he missed out on round 3, but it does also suck that he couldn't qualify during round 2. So moving on to Heat 3, we have Dejan and Pledge. They won the very first game of Heat 3. And I mean, they really deserved it, honestly. They figured out what they were doing wrong, and they were able to clutch up very first game of Heat 3 to auto-qualify onto the finals. So glad they're there. I've been rooting for Dejan for a while now. I'm going to be watching him in the finals and be rooting for him to at least make top 10, top 5 maybe. Who knows? Second person was Slacks and Clarity G, which is kind of surprising that, they waited this long to actually make it into the finals all the way down to like round 3. Really, that was because originally they were going log jams, but then they switched to reality because Ocus wasn't dropping there anymore because obviously he had to fly over to Saudi Arabia. And from there, it took 2 games from the reality tree to auto qualify in. Also, with them dropping log jams, it was kind of an edge location, so rotation in Heat 3 was like pretty much all the way down south, so they had a long way to rotate. New storm surge changes, all that kind of griefed their games in Heat 1 and 2. But here in Heat 3, they changed up their drop spot and were able to qualify within 2 games. So best of luck to them in the finals. They should probably do well. They normally do in the finals. So third game, we had Glace and Elite. Another good duo that probably shouldn't have waited until round 3 to actually qualify through, but unfortunately Elite had internet issues during Heat 2, so they really didn't get to play a good majority of round 2, or else they would have probably qualified during round 2. Now, this next one I want to talk about because watching this win live was just absolutely insane. And that's from D-Roller and Knifer. D-Roller 1v4'd 2 duos, okay, for the win and made it look effortless. I want to roll the clip for you guys because it's just amazing. If you didn't see it, y'all need to see this. And if you have seen it, then enjoy it again because it was a really, really good fight.
Right. Fine farm. You just need a few builds to win this game. Keep farming, keep farming. Mantle. No mats. Spray him, spray him, spray him. Nice. Nice, get all the mats. It's one duo. Nice. You're out.
Now, I know D-Roller and Knifer could probably have made it through, you know, with all the other heats. But with this one, they kind of got lucky with the zone pulling to where the gas station was. And for them to be able to just like blow up the gas pumps there to really expose the other 2 duos that didn't have any mats, or so it seemed, and pick up, you know, the victory royale from the 2 duos. It was just amazing. Well done on them. Another team that I was rooting for during the heats was Fable Taco and Chewy. Now they almost did not make it through. I think they were like top 10 before winning the game that they were winning, or they won. Because if you look at their match history, they have a 3rd place, a 33rd place, a 20th place, a 39th place, and then finally the victory that they got. So without this victory royale, they probably wouldn't have made it through. But had they come second, it would have been really close. They might have been right there on the cutoff. And honestly, I think they were on the cutoff before they won the game. And I'll talk about that as we go on down the list for the consistency players, which is next. So for consistency, we have Bryce and Nawson, Kicks and Sphinx, Mason and Inpin, Nosh and Jack, Tahi and Bank, and Pam Stew and Fatch, which is really surprised to see them at the very bottom of the list. But with Pam Stew and Fatch, for round 1 and round 2, they were dropping the Lighthouse split, and they were also contested. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, all the zones were pretty much pulling south, and Pam Stew and Fatch were landing pretty much as far north as you can go, and they had it contested. With having it contested, having to rotate to the completely opposite side of the map, and the new storm surge changes, they were struggling pretty much all through round 1 and round 2. So they definitely worked hard to get this qualification to move on to the finals with consistency, of course. And if it wasn't for Fable Taco and Chewy winning that last game, then Fable Taco and Chewy would have been the very last one to actually qualify through with consistency. But since they won, it actually bumped Pam Stew and Fatch up into that bubble, which I was so happy for, because I root for Pam Stew and Fatch almost every time. They're amazing players, amazing people, and it's great to see them play. And I'm glad that they're in the finals, because they're probably one of my favorite teams on NaE's, if I do say so myself. And unfortunately, Scope did not qualify. I really wanted to see him in here, but unfortunately, just like Blake, he is also going to Saudi Arabia to play in the Fortnite tournament over there. And he had this whole plan set up. He was going to fly over to Blake's so that way they could get ready to go to Saudi Arabia and just use his PC for the first half of round 3 and try to qual then. Unfortunately, since he was using Blake's PC, Epic ended up flagging the account and he could not queue up for round 3 of the semifinals. So he wasn't able to play round 3, which caused him not to qualify. Unfortunately for him, that is the case. But just like Blake, they're going off to Saudi Arabia to play for $2 million. You take the good with the bad, I guess. But that's going to be it for me. Let me know who y'all are rooting for from this list of people in the in the grand finals. And I will have a video later on when we actually get a full drop map of who's dropping where in the finals, and I will give you guys my prediction for who is winning the whole thing along with the top 5. That's going to do it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, hit the subscribe button, the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye.